waste a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
And misappropriate some too. And then we spend some good time. Anything else that we consume? I don't have a list here, so I'm just asking. What else do we consume? Energy, time, food.
Hopefully love from people
yeah.
around you.
Yeah. So those are some things, I guess, when we're talking about consumption. So we're going to speak a little bit about consumption today in your lesson. So if you'll follow me here on 233. Would anybody like to read today, or do you want me just to read to you? Which do you? Anybody want to volunteer? Daniel 1, 8 through 17. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, I am afraid of my lord, the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. Daniel then said to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat of the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. And then 1 Timothy 4, 7 through 8. Have nothing to do with godless myths and old wives' tales. Rather, train yourselves to be godly. For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. Daniel is so interesting to me. I love to read Daniel and what happened to him and how he treats those around him and just how God uses Daniel. So here we see that evidently, of course, they had been taken out of Israel, and in the journey they were now captives in Babylon, and the king, of course, picked the youngest men that he thought were, we would call them intellectuals today, and then gave them off the king's table the dainty foods and the wine and all the special foods. So Daniel wasn't having any of that. So he wanted to not rely on that, but depend on the Lord. And as he did that, of course, his appearance was even better than those who are consuming the dainty food, because he relied on God. So that's something that we can keep in mind also as we consume things. Let us be patient and trusting in the Lord that he will, of course, give us what we need. Now, that doesn't mean we can go out and eat all kinds of junk food and trust the Lord to make it okay. So we have to kind of wait.
It has eggs and milk. They're good for you.
I'm sorry?
Brownies. They have eggs and milk.
There you go.
And you can put nuts in them. Made some last night.
So when my wife and I got married, one of the things she said to me, because I have never seen anybody eat cake for breakfast. But that's one of the things she said to me.
Oh, crap. But he always said, yes, it was good to eat cake for breakfast, because it had eggs in
eggs in.
Eggs and milk, yeah.
Yeah. But I had never seen anybody eat cake for breakfast, so she started doing that, and I questioned her, and that's what she said.
Richard will eat it every time it goes by it.
All right, on the next page in your book, in 234 at the top where it says the introduction, consequences and neglect. When I was a teenager, taking care of my body seemed effortless. As an athlete on the cross-country team, exercise was built into my routine. I could eat whatever I wanted without feeling any adverse effects, so I didn't pay attention to what I ate. Several decades and 2 children and a stint in graduate school later, I wish I could still say the same. While it brings me joy, most of my work is done at a desk in front of a screen. The demands of family and church take up whatever time I have left, and I find myself neglecting the care my body needs. On a trip with our church's youth group last summer, I struggled physically. At that point, it occurred to me that while I spend a lot of energy studying, writing, and teaching about God, I hardly put any effort into caring for the body God gave me. That neglect was getting in the way of serving God. It is impossible to separate my physical body and my service to God. As both texts for this lesson show, neither should be ignored. So yes, the decisions we make may not affect us now, but may affect us later. Or it could affect one part of our life, but not affect others. Or it could affect everything. So everything has consequences, right? Has anybody been to the new gym that they have up here at Town Hall, not Town Hall, but the Senior Center? They have a weightlifting gym and stuff.
We saw it when it opened, but we haven't been to it to do it.
I haven't been to the new library at all, not yet.
I haven't either, but it's free to go in there and use their facilities. I need to start doing that myself. I need to be a little bit more
They have
careful.
exercise groups and senior groups.
I had exercise outside yesterday. Instead of taking the riding lawnmower, I used to push lawnmower just in front of my house with all that purple weed stuff I wanted, and it was pretty tall, and so I cut it with the push lawnmower, and I told myself this is the exercise for today.
Mm-hmm.
And I did.
Was it one of the push mowers with blades that go around and around?
It's self-propelled, yes, but
Yeah.
still, it's
So you followed it?
Not really, because even if we go uphill, you still have to push a little bit. That and pulling weeds, I did out of my daffodils and stuff. I cleaned that up too. So I spent most of the day outside, and that was my exercise. So.
And that's important, I think. And not only that, exercise, but it's the sunshine that you get, vitamin D. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With 2 retired nurses in here, how important was it for diet in healing and recovery of your patients?
It's very important.
Interesting. I always wondered for people who are on IVs, did they get just the necessities if they can't eat and they're on IV to be fed? Do they just get the necessities, or do they get not only to maintain the body, but enough to keep them a little bit more healthy or whatever?
Well, the IVs have stuff in it too that helps your body, but actually food is not as important as liquid is, water. Mm-hmm. That's the most important. You can go out in the desert and starve, but as long as you have water, you'll survive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll get you a long ways. But you can do more without the food, but not without the water for so long. Yeah. So.
Over on page 235 in the dark box, talks about setting boundaries. How do we decide which issues and situations call for setting a boundary in service to God and which do not? Just like Daniel set a boundary, and he was not going to eat the dainty foods, but he wanted to rely on God and eat the vegetables. How do we set boundaries in our Christian life? And how hard is that? Where do we set them, and how important are those boundaries as we serve God today?
I think boundaries are important, like, to pray daily. Um, if you can, read your Bible. Most of the time I do mine before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
It always helps me go to sleep. I guess, and treat people right. That's, the way God would want us to treat everybody and ourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a long time ago that people, if they're not happy with themselves, they don't like other people. So you have to love yourself too,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe first, and then you can love everybody else.
Yes.
So
Good point.
When we're away on vacation, we try to find a church to go to still,
Mm-hmm.
when we're gone on a Sunday.
Yes.
So we still get that. As with couples, I always talk about setting boundaries with other people, for healthy sexual boundaries, so that we're preserving the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, those are important points.
I have a friend that I speak with quite often, and it's a woman, and she tells me that, have you ever seen these people who everybody goes to with their problems and talks to them?
Mm-hmm.
But she's very good at listening and giving Christian advice, so she's in high demand. So lots of folks call her, talk to her, but then she and I talk, and I can tell that she holds on to a lot of the problems that people share, because she's what I call a fix-it person. She wants to fix it and make it right, and I'm kind of like that, but and I told her, you have to set boundaries. Yes, for your own health, you have to kind of separate and keep yourself insulated, but yet still give that Christian advice that you need. So setting boundaries is important, not only for the things that we consume, but in our Christian walk. It is so important, just like Daniel did. He set his boundaries. Wearing white, that's also on page 235. It says, it was the first week of a new job. Now this sounds like something I would do. I was nervous, excited, and keen to make a good first impression. One morning, I chose to wear my white trousers. On the way to work, I picked up a breakfast bowl with egg and tomato. As I sat down at my desk, I managed to spill all the contents on my white trousers. The accident happened just minutes before a business meeting with senior leaders. Panic set as I rushed into the restroom to assess the damage. I learned a valuable lesson. When you wear white, you are more conscious of where you sit and what you eat, or at least you should be, to avoid staining or spoiling your trousers. Daniel knew he belonged to the Lord and was clothed in the fear and favor of the Lord. He knew that being God's servant required one to be set apart. Consider what you regularly consume with your body, mind, and spirit. Where might you make an adjustment to serve the Lord more faithfully, just as Daniel did? So Daniel was set apart. We are set apart. And one of the things I was going to mention a while ago, I went out to eat by myself last night. Some of the restaurants I don't like go to, you're the same way. When she's not in town, I hit those restaurants that we can't go together because either she don't like or she won't eat. But anyway, I was in one of those last night. And there was a table right beside me who had an issue with the bill that they were given. And they went up to the front and raised a ruckus, and the restaurant was really crowded. But I was thinking to myself about the lesson today and how others look at you and see you. You might not think that they look, but you are a representative of Christ and our faith. So the things that we do and how we act out in public where everybody else can see is a reflection on our faith. So we have to be careful and set those boundaries and be an example for Christ that others can see and respect. And that, of course, will shine on Christ in our faith. Flipping the page over as we finish up today on page 237, at the top in the darkened box, how should Christians respond to a policy that goes against their convictions? Well, the king wanted him to eat daily food, all the food off the king's table and the wine. They said no. So how should we, as Christians, respond to a policy that goes against what we believe in? If someone wants you to do something against what you believe in, how do you approach that?
You just say, no, thank you, that I'm not into this, I'm doing this or whatever, but just decline very easily.
Opens the door for you to be able to share your faith, maybe.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't give in to your convictions just because you don't want to make someone mad. So you're right, you've got to say no. Sometimes it's in how we say no rather than what we say. And I'm very guilty of letting my mouth run before my brain engages, and I think we all are. Sometimes we have to stop and think what we're going to say and how we're going to say it. Heidi and I have that conversation all the time. I don't like your tone. I don't like the way you said that. So we kind of joke with each other about that now. But yes, we have to keep those boundaries and keep those convictions, and that's important. And under the conclusion on page 239, the ultimate goal. Both texts for this lesson deal with the connection between bodies and honoring God. In Daniel 1, 8 through 17, Daniel and his companions resisted total assimilation into Babylonian culture and religion. This resistance took the form of by tactfully refusing to eat and drink the wine given to them. Instead, Daniel requested water and food that was more in line with God's desires. Through God's intervention, his request was granted, and the resulting trial period was successful. Daniel and his companions resisted being fully assimilated, maintaining their connection to their people and God. Strong connections can be formed through food and other kinds of consumption. These connections may be relational. They may be philosophical or societal, being mindful of what you consume and its effects on both your body and soul will be noticed by others. Daniel and his friends used their bodies to honor God. For us, this can take the physical forms of eating healthy foods, drinking water, exercising, getting enough rest, and being proactive about preventive care. The text of 1 Timothy 4, 7 through 8 puts this into a spiritual perspective. While celebrating the goodness of God's creation, Paul instructed Timothy to make the pursuit of godliness his highest priority. The language he used alluded to athletes' training. This reminded Timothy that pursuing God gains a believer far more than focusing primarily on the body ever could. Living within misaligned cultures, it can be easy to allow the pursuit of bodily health to rise above its proper place in our priorities. Paul's words remind believers that faithfulness to God matters more. So it's important to use Daniel as our example. Set the boundaries. Have our priorities. Use what we do and consume to honor God. And with that, we'll be blessed, just as Daniel was blessed. I thought it was an interesting lesson today. One you don't really look at and consider much. And sometimes the Bible is that way. It has details in there that's very easy to read over. But then when you look back at them and dwell on them and pick apart the words and the lesson that's given in there, you see some of the things that we relate to today. We just have to have our eyes open to those. Remind yourself of that as we consume this week. All of us consume all the time.
You know, one thing that always amazed me was, back many years ago when I first started working, we gave our elderly patients about 2 ounces of wine right before their meal, their evening meal.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, a lot of them wouldn't eat. They were gonna go to bed, they didn't wanna eat. And that was a pick-me-up. And then you've got the alcoholics that come in that you're drying out and their liver's enlarged. And it's kind of strange that you're using the same food, or the same liquid both ways,
Mm-hmm.
to help and to say, no more.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And one of the things sometimes that we will consume as we get sick is alcohol. We'll take a
My
shot
grandfather
of this.
he called himself a teetotaler, which meant no alcohol whatsoever, unless he got sick. And then he had, what did he call it? Toddy? Toddy, which had alcohol in it.
Yeah.
But he didn't even admit that that was alcoholic.
Yeah.
Shot of rumble to clear your sinuses.
Yeah. Well,
In Germany, when babies are teething,
Randy?
the mom takes a little bit of whatever kind of strong alcohol and rubs the gums with it,
Ah,
Yeah.
neat.
and they still do it.
I've heard that, yeah, brandy and the gum.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, not heard of that.
I've heard of it, but I never would do it.
Yeah.
Too many problems with alcohol already. We never had alcohol in our house when I was growing up, and we never had it when we got married. We just don't put it in Temptation's way of kids.
One person had an interesting perspective on food and health, which was looking at actually the health of his spouse, who he said there was a good chance, he said because of various just health conditions that she had, there was a chance he was going to have to be her caregiver when they were older. So he realized he had to tend to his own health just so that he could be in good shape
Oh,
to be a caregiver.
That would be my case. I knew, because Joe was so much older than me, I knew that I would have to take care of him, and the time came, and I did it.
You did a good job.
yes, you did.
Thank you. And
I know that was tough on you.
it was, the last year was the toughest. Other than that, it was okay. And the times he would call the cops on me, and oh my God, that was
I
horrible.
always remember that one Sunday, or that one time in Bible study when we were talking about, I think he asked a question or something, and he answered it. And, you know, he had his head like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
looked like he was sound asleep,
Yeah.
and he answered the question. You never know.
He knew
You
the
never
Bible very well. His
Yes,
mama
he sure
taught
did.
him well. He did. Yeah. But he had his moments too, but we all do.
Well, thank you all for coming today. And Pastor, would you close us today in prayer?
Heavenly Father, you give us everything, make us good stewards of all that we have and all that we do, so that all consumption may be to your glory, and all the boundaries and restrictions and diets and things we refrain from would also be to your glory, to all that which you have made, for you have made it good, and we thank you for that. We thank you for Matt's teaching here today. We thank you that we could be around your word this day. Set us all out in peace.